Bonjour tout le monde, bienvenue. Welcome everyone. Thank you. As we begin our meeting today, and on behalf of Ottawa City Council, I wish to acknowledge that Ottawa is built on unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The City of Ottawa honors the peoples and land of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation and honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and their past and present contributions to this land. I will now ask the committee coordinator to do the roll call, please.
Councillor Lula.
Present.
Councillor Dudas.
Present.
Councillor Curry.
Here.
Councillor Gower.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Councillor King.
Here.
Councillor Leeper.
Good morning.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Menard.
Here.
Councillor DeRuse.
Here.
Vice Chair Kitts.
Here.
Mayor Sutcliffe.
Here.
You have quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? All right, confirmation of minutes from the Finance and Corporate Services Committee meeting of September 5th. Are the minutes carried? Item 4 is Finance and Corporate Services Department 4.1 uncollectible taxes under Section 354 of the Municipal Act 2001. Is that carried? Carried. Item 4.2 is the Municipal Price Index Feasibility Review.
I'd like to hold that for comment.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Item 5.1 is the Comprehensive Legal Services Report for the period of January 1st to June 30th, 2023. Is that received? Pardon? You have a question for that? Okay. Item 6.1 is a status update for the Finance and Corporate Services Committee inquiries and motions for the period ending September 21st. Is that received?
Received.
Item 7.1 is a request to waive the leasing policy for LRT retail spaces. Is that carried?
Mayor, can you just one quick question on that?
Okay, we'll hold that.
Thanks.
Item 7.2, there is a delegation on that, so we'll come back to that one. So let's go back to item 4.2, the Municipal Price Index Feasibility Review. And Councillor King, you had a question?
Just a comment, Your Worship. I just wanted to go on record to disagree with staff's assessment concerning the development and use of a municipal price index within this budget cycle. I believe that using various economic tools and indices in budget analysis can provide a better comprehensive understanding of the economic landscape and help both city staff and council make more informed decisions. Different tools such as a municipal price index offer varied perspectives, ensuring a more well-rounded analysis. Within the report, it had been noted that the city of Edmonton had stated that a municipal price index is not a prescriptive tool that mandates operating expenditures increases each year. Rather, a municipal price index is a tool that helps better inform the city's budgetary process concerning external economic conditions that the city may be exposed to. This type of analysis is beneficial considering the breadth of inflationary pressures have remained wide in Canada and has actually accelerated at its fastest pace in a generation. The city is affected by external factors such as rising payrolls within the construction sector and the increasing cost of transportation, cement, asphalt, and other materials as examples. It makes sense to undertake a collective assessment of such economic variables to enable more accurate predictions and budget planning. The MPI as a tool could assist with facilitating more evidence-based policymaking, ensuring our policies better align with economic realities, and that we have a wider suite of tools to assess potential budgetary risks, aiding in the formulation of risk mitigation strategies. I believe such a tool could help us better assess and manage the economic pressures that have and will continue to beset us, especially concerning transit, affordable housing, construction, and other escalating costs. I also believe that with advances in technology, such as machine learning, that a new set of economic modeling tools, which did not exist more than a decade ago, can be leveraged to aid in the creation of a municipal price index. I think integrating various economic tools and indices in budget analysis can offer a more comprehensive, accurate, and insightful approach to budget planning. Our goal should be to continue to enhance tools to ensure that elected decision makers and the public have the knowledge and insight to make informed decisions, maintain and improve city services, promote economic growth, and ensure sustainable development. The implementation of MPI should be one of those enhanced tools, and with massive deficits and pressures projected in our upcoming transit operating budgets in the years to come, it is my opinion that we should strongly consider its use in the years to come. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Leeper?
I think Councillor.
Oh,
Menard there.
sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
see that because his camera isn't on. Councillor Menard.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Yeah, I can turn my camera on if you like. There we are. Just wanted to touch base on this one and just ask staff a question about what their intent is. I know I saw the report tabled and the report was kind of high level, but just wondering what the intent is. Is the intent to bring forward a municipal price index as soon as possible, as we saw during the budget direction discussion? And I think this was located in the budget direction documents. Just in terms of that MPI, looking to other cities that have done this, and in light of Councillor King's comments, just wondering their thoughts. Thanks, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, yes. So as per the motion, was directing staff to look at the feasibility of leveraging an MPI. What this report recommends is not to move forward with that. So I'll kind of take the opportunity to give some context. So basically what we use at the city is a very more prescriptive process of inflationary pressures. The majority of our pressures, approximately 50%, is driven by compensation. So that's driven through your collective agreement increases. We also look at individual commodities such as our utilities, water, hydro, et cetera. We use the exact inflationary increases for those specific commodities. We also do the same for our fuel, specifically our diesel, where we edge our contracts. So when you look at across the different municipalities, Edmonton and Calgary does use it. There's a number of municipalities in Ontario that use it, just some that have used it but decided not to use it because they use a more prescriptive approach to budgeting like we do here. The other component is when I look at my colleagues in York, they actually did a pretty in-depth study of the MPI versus CPI. And I'll just quote a couple indicators just for reference. In 2023, the CPI was 3.5%. York calculated the MPI at 3.5%. 2024, they project 2.3 for CPI, MPI 2.4%. 2025 CPI 2%, 2025 MPI 2.1%. So there's a very marginal difference between the two rates. Having said that, even when we look at our different commodities, when you look at the way we use a prescriptive approach to each specific area, if I were to apply the MPI, it would actually not benefit certain things like our food security budget. We have a $1.5 million food security budget. So if I were to use a flat CPI or an MPI, that would suggest using a 2.4%, I'm sorry, for 2024. What we're actually using in our budget build for the food component of our budget is actually 8.5%. So again, what we do is we go commodity by commodity and use the specific commodity increases. Where there's no specific one, we look at our contracts, because some contracts have a rate card, so the standard rates apply from a construction contract perspective. So there's very limited areas in our budget that we actually apply that kind of blanket CPI. The other component of the MPI is it is a quite onerous process to develop and maintain. So giving the, I'll call it the value for money approach, our prescriptive approach that we follow today is much more fiscally prudent. And that's why we're recommending that moving forward with establishing or maintaining an MPI.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm interested in this because I know in the past we have had the discussion a lot about implementing, at least getting more statistics, because oftentimes our contracts are coming in at different rates, let's say, than federal contracts might or other contracts might. And having a better understanding of the municipality's costs is always helpful, I think, as a data point. Of course, at the end of the day, it's our residents' costs that matter most, and how they're being affected by, not just our own property tax decisions, but by the fees that we charge in our budget. Now that's a different conversation than what the municipality would be affected by in terms of overall price inflation, but obviously something to keep in mind in doing this exercise. Is this a change though? Because it seemed in the budget directions we were heading in this direction or considering it. So are we changing that with this report, or is this steady state that we were always intending?
Mr. Mayor, no. So in the directions report, I made the comment that we would be coming back to this committee today with that report. We weren't finished our analysis with respect to moving forward with MPI. At that time of the directions report, I was quite confident that we would be recommending not moving forward, given what I just articulated a few minutes ago in terms of the process we follow. So we didn't state in the directions report that we would be using MPI, it was rather that we would be coming forward today with that final report.
Okay, thanks. I'll ponder this some more, Mayor, but appreciate the update from staff and also Councillor King's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Menard. But what you're saying is effectively that rather than look at an amalgamated price index on municipal costs, we're looking at each individual cost on its own and understanding the rate at which it's growing individually, rather than combining them all into some type of average, and that has more value than an index.
Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leeper?
Thank you, Mayor. And I share my colleagues' disease with not moving ahead with the municipal price index. I think there's value in having a number with an historical record behind it so we can see how it changes. And when we do budget directions each year, which again is a process I would prefer we actually not do, I would like to hear how much the city needs in order to be able to provide the services that people want. We are looking at one number. We're looking at is it going to be 2.5% this year? Is it going to be 3% this year? And I'd like to be able to compare that to an overall idea of what inflation is doing, because I don't believe that the recommendation that comes in front of us in terms of what the budget direction number is necessarily reflective of a very rigorous look at what each of the budget line items is going up by. It would be useful to have that larger number in front of me. And I don't think that, we have had the time necessarily to contemplate how this can be used. So I just want to confirm today, and I think you said so in your response to Councillor Menard, that we're not voting today on whether or not to institute a municipal price index. That would be subject of a motion that any councillor could bring to either this committee or to council. What we're voting on today is simply receiving the analysis that you've done so far.
Mr. Mayor, yes, the motion was to feasibility. My report recommendation is not to proceed with an MPI. So you're voting on the report today, but yes, a motion could be brought forward if the will of council is to do that. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. So is the report received?
Received.
Thank you. Item 5.1 is the Comprehensive Legal Services Report. Councillor Brockington, you had a question or comment about that?
Yes, I have a sort of a high level question, not germane to the time period of this report, but it is an issue that I'm struggling with in my ward right now, Mayor, and that is following the August 10th significant rainfall event that we had, I would estimate that hundreds of homes in my ward have been damaged by water penetration. And a number of people are considering filing a claim against the city for damages that range from $10,000 to $100,000 per household. The city has not yet been able to assess and or analyze the state of the infrastructure in these communities, and I believe 5 wards have been impacted. So my question is, when we get this report for Q3 and 4, and there are a number of claims against the city, and the city has not yet been able to, I think it's going to take months, if not even longer, for the city to assess all these streets times 5 wards. How does that get reflected in these types of reports when there's going to be an influx of claims against the city? The city will not have the human power to do the work that needs to be done. How does that get reflected? Thank you.
Mayor, as set out in the, and you see this semi-annually in the report notes the number of claims incoming, and it also notes the number of claims that have been concluded, appreciating two things. One, generally speaking, a claimant has up to 2 years to file a claim in respect of an incident that they believe has resulted in loss of to their property or injury to themselves. But also that for those very reasons, the investigation of those claims can take some time. And so you may well see an influx and an increase in the number of claims received. In the event that those are ultimately addressed, you'll see that reflected perhaps in a subsequent report in terms of that you're seeing that influx then kind of dispensed with or addressed through the claims closed process.
And not citing any other historical instances, but when we have had a large number of claims filed from a group of individuals, how does the city prepare itself to have enough resources in place to assess those claims in a reasonable time period?
Mayor, depending on how the claims arise. So in the event of, for example, claims that arise out of a natural event, we may review it from a legal standpoint, appreciating that municipalities in Ontario and elsewhere benefit from particular protections with respect to what are called nuisance claims. And so it may be that a legal assessment is sufficient. Beyond that, my claims unit relies on the information that's provided by operating departments. So in the context of flooding, the analysis doesn't necessarily look at the specific state of the infrastructure at each residence, but we will look at whether the infrastructure was constructed in accordance with the prevailing standards of the day, and whether it was maintained throughout that period in accordance, again, with the reasonable standards expected of a public authority. And so it's not necessarily an individualized assessment where there are those kinds of large events that give rise to a significant number of claims, but there may be some decisions and some analysis that can address a lot of them in the aggregate.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks, Mayor, for the leniency in allowing me to ask these questions. This is a very, very challenging matter in my ward right now. I would estimate over 100 homes have been significantly damaged based on the August 10th storm, and people are struggling in addition to insurance claims, which are covering just a minor amount of damage that many of these households have faced, how they go about addressing this matter with the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Is the report received? Thank you. Moving to item 7.1, the request to waive the leasing policy for LRT retail spaces. I believe Councillor Menard asked for that to be held. Councillor Menard?
Yes, thanks so much, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions on this one. And I'll just preface by saying I really like Happy Goat coffee. It is delicious, and it's, you know, one of the best Ottawa coffee chains, certainly. I just want to dig into the policy though, because it's not about whether we like the coffee or not. So I think what we're saying is here, we're going to be giving right of first refusal to this company, and offering also a rent tied to ridership model. Can staff just explain that a little bit more?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So we are proposing to offer them a first right of refusal for the next phase of the LRT. The leasing policy requires that city space that's available for lease is to be marketed and open to the public. So that's what we're asking committee and council to waive to go forward and offer them that first right. If we would negotiate obviously a market rent for the space, and if they choose not to move forward with those spaces in phase 2 LRT, then we would market it out to the general public for some type of use.
Okay, and why are we sort of just giving, I guess, preference to the one company instead of marketing it right from the get-go?
I think from staff's position, given the conditions and the change in market that happened for them in phase one, we're offering them this opportunity, given the investment they made in phase one. They're looking for an opportunity in phase two to sort of more or less double down on our LRT system. It would also provide uniformity in the stations in terms of the type of services offered.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm not arguing against the rent arrangement really. I guess waiving the policy to give right of first refusal on top of, I guess, rent reductions that have taken place just seems like a bit more than I'd be comfortable with. I think, again, Happy Goat is a great coffee chain. But I think it's the principle we're trying to establish here that we go out to tender for these sorts of things. And I don't feel comfortable just waiving that policy. It's not about whether we like the shop or not. So I think, just given that, I'll dissent on the report, Mayor, but hope we can do more of this sort of, outright market-driven potential for competitors here that the city gets the best deal. And I'm not sure this is it. So I just want to mention that. Report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Menard. But I think what you're saying is that because of the unique circumstances of COVID and phase one and the decline in ridership, that we're trying to be flexible here in order to allow them to recoup their losses from phase one effectively. Is that fair to say?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. I would suggest that the market conditions when they won the award were quite different from the market conditions that they've experienced over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And going forward.
So we're trying to work with our partner here to achieve an outcome that works for everyone.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brockington?
Thanks, Mayor. I remember Mr. Manconi saying the best time to go out and get advertising was at the lowest point of our ridership, which I really struggle to wrap my head around, because Transit Commissioner Caricato wanted much more advertising in our LRT carriages and stations, and we all agree we want more advertising revenue, and Manconi thought the best time to go out was when our ridership levels were at the lowest. And I thought, why don't we just wait until ridership comes up, and then it's more weight that we have on our shoulders to actually get advertisers to come in. So I'm scratching my head here with I understand what Councillor Menard is saying, but I also understand what the mayor is saying. And so my questions will help me understand how I vote. So is it that no one else is interested in taking over these retail spots, or we just haven't gone out post-COVID to the market to ask, is there anyone else who would like to come in?
So for phase one, Mr. Mayor, that's an existing lease. And so that would expire in 2025. What's before council or committee today is for the next phase. And yes, we have not gone out to the market. That's why we're asking for committee and council approval to offer them a first right of refusal. Now we will negotiate a market rent. So when the time comes, when the spaces are ready and we're going to do a lease, we're not offering any discount on what we get appraised at the market value. So we'll be looking to get true market value, whether it's with Happy Goat or with somebody else if they choose not to move forward.
So part of the phase one deal, Happy Goat retain the rights for Tunney's, Herdman, Rideau, and Blair stations. Which stations have Happy Goats in them today?
Blair has a location and then Rideau has location, but we're closing down the Rideau location. It just wasn't performing.
So is that space going to be reserved for future retail, someone else, or is OC Transpo going to use that space for another purpose?
Mr. Mayor, staff discussions have been around utilizing that space for a ticket office that we currently have located in a retail space. So we'd be looking maybe to try and collapse that lease and locate the ticket office in the Rideau station.
Because part of the direction from the Transit Commission has we want to animate our stations. They are institutional, they are cold, they are not fun places to be in. And one of the directions we've given consistently is we want to see buskers, we want to see retail establishments, we want to see more art. So if Happy Goat can't make it work, and I understand COVID has been significant, so I'm not gonna undermine what's happened there, but how do we know that the public want these retail establishments as opposed to opening it open to other opportunities to make sure that whatever goes in there is going to be successful? You would think a coffee shop would be successful, but we're hearing that only one will remain.
No, well, Mr. Mayor, Happy Goat will be opening its other two locations. So that would be at Herdman and at Tunney's. Only the Rito station will be closed. And I think Happy Goat just saw it wasn't performing, and it probably due to the location, it's the deepest station in the line, and it's easier to get your coffee at street level than it is down in the station.
Fair enough. Okay, so I am going to support the staff recommendation with reservations that I do believe these types of opportunities need to go out to make sure that all parties have equal opportunity. But I do believe that if we have a local retailer who wants to expand and provide this type of service and will pay fair market rent, then I'm willing to support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you, Mayor. And I too will be supporting the staff recommendation. I feel for Happy Goat trying to make a business selling coffee in the Rito station, given the environment there. When there's a Starbucks, literally on top of them, that's not an easy business to make, and good on them for at least trying. I do think they invested in stage one on the basis that we were going to build an LRT that was going to attract a very high ridership, and that has not been the case. I don't want to diminish the step that staff are having to take here of very explicitly asking us to waive our policy on the basis of special considerations. That is a mechanism that exists within our rules as a council. And in this case, staff are taking that step of asking us to make an exception to our own policy. But I think for those of us who understand the commitment and the investment that Happy Goat has made in stage one, that has been extremely challenging, and not just because of COVID. I have to say that I believe that our own LRT challenges that are self-inflicted have had an effect on the potential customer base that Happy Goat has had. So I'm really pleased. I will be very pleased to give them that right of first refusal. I am curious, what would be a proposed term of lease if you are able to negotiate something with Happy Goat?
Mr. Mayor, that'd be too early to contemplate. We won't enter into negotiations until the LRT is closer to completion.
Okay. They're not, would it be in the ballpark of a 10-year lease, a 5-year lease, a 20-year lease?
The existing lease was agreed to at 5 years with a 9-year option to renew. So we'd probably maybe looking at something similar.
Okay. Well, I hope Henry is successful in making that. And I, for one, am willing to make an exception in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. Councillor Gower.
Thank you. The report noted that a date will be established for the opening at Tunney's. Does staff have any additional information about when that might be?
We wanted to wait until, Mr. Mayor, we wanted to wait until this report was approved to start discussing that, but it'd be ASAP from our perspective.
Okay, that's good to hear. It'll be a welcome addition to the station when it opens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gower. All right, is the report carried then?
Mayor, thanks.
So, Councillor Menard, you're noting your dissent, yes?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, item 7.2 is the delegation of authority for the acquisition and sale of land and property from the 1st of January to the 30th of June, 2023. And we do have a written submission from Cheryl Parrott along with a delegation from Cheryl Parrott. So whenever you're ready, Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So if you could just hold the video for a minute. I'm here to seek clarification on the staff delegated authority for 1010 Somerset and how that affects Plouffe Park located at Somerset and Preston Street. 4 groups came together 2 years ago to try to request input on the plans for the new development at 1010 Somerset. And that includes Plant Pool Recreation Association, the Recreation Association of Hintonburg, Dalhousie Community Association, and Hintonburg Community Association. We've read the committee documents when this parcel of land was purchased from the federal government in March 2021. Some community members have been told by staff that the delegated authority on 1010 Somerset also extends to 930 Somerset, which is the Plant Pool Recreation Center, and to Plouffe Park. And that's not in the documentation that we can see. If this is indeed true, then staff would be able to sell off Plouffe Park, as they are suggesting, without a vote at committee and council. And this would set a very dangerous precedent. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. This sale would be counter to Article 7.2 of the Parks and Rec Master Plan, which states, existing parkland shall retain recreation as its primary function and shall not be sold or built upon. So why is the city contemplating breaking its own rules? The community has continuously used Plouffe Park for over a century, and it's the only large park in a wide area and in an area that has the lowest ratio of parks to population. We're only a quarter of the OP target. Mayor Sutcliffe, we asked a month ago whether staff delegated authority on 1010 Somerset also applied to the possible sale of Plouffe Park. And we're still waiting for an answer, and that makes us very nervous that this is true. If this decision's been delegated to staff, then please vote to lift delegated authority. This decision will have enormous impacts on all of us and all communities. We support building a new French public school, but not on Plouffe Park. The city originally proposed it on the Gladstone Village, 933 Gladstone, then 1010 Somerset. Now it's switched to Plouffe Park. We believe there are other options that don't pit 2 parts of the community against each other and take away valuable green space. The previous lands that are mentioned, I think, could still be worked on. There's also Bayview Yards. There's a city parking lot at Preston north of the Queensway, all within this area. And we also note the city has just spent a whole whack of money on brand new, very big lights for Plouffe Park, which haven't been even turned on yet. It's still refurbishing the playing field at Plouffe Park, and you'll see a big mound of dirt in the video. The basketball court has just reopened after extensive work, which we think cost around $100,000. So if the park is sold, then both these areas will be torn up next year. We also understand Plouffe Park is a flood area for the 1 in 100 rain event, with valves that let water into the park to reduce flooding to nearby businesses and residents, and slowly release it as sewer capacity increases. So I was particularly interested in Councillor Brockington's comments in item 5.1. So we need lots of answers. And if you could just play the video, please, and then I have one comment after that.
So you have about 10 seconds left, Cheryl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at one paragraph. So please consider lifting delegated authority from 930 Somerset and ask staff for costing on how much has gone into fixing up Plouffe Park and the basketball court over the last 2 years. And where will the new flood holding area be for those increasing rain events? It's not 1 in 100 now, it's like 1 in 20. And how much will that cost? Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your delegation. Councillor Troster.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say hi to you, Cheryl, and to get a chance to intervene here just to let many know a little bit more about this project. And I see Robin Stouchin is on the call. So just so you know, the development at 1010 Somerset / Plant Bath is still out for consultation. We have not held our public consultation, the in-person and virtual meeting yet. That will be happening very soon. Cheryl, I share your concerns about Plouffe Park. The proposal as it stands right now would move the parkland to another part of the site, but the community obviously has a great interest in maintaining this green space. And also there's a serious concern that if a school is built on the site, that there could be a staging area for the construction and the community could lose its only green space for a very long period of time. But I just wanted to let folks know that I'm actively engaged with staff to try to find a solution, and that the consultation process for this site has not been completed yet. And the renderings that were up on Engage Ottawa are by no means final. So, but I wanted to thank you for coming, Cheryl, because I do share your concerns. But we're not at the point where we have anything coming to Planning and Housing Committee yet. I think we can expect to see that in early winter, and I think what we can expect to see to Housing Committee might be very different from what we're seeing. But we have not completed the community engagement process yet, so I just wanted to make.
Thank you, Councillor Troster. Councillor Leeper. Okay. All right. We'll thank Cheryl Parrott for her delegation then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Councillor Leeper, go ahead.
Thank you very much. This morning, I think a number of us received an email from Ms. Parrott, who's a Kitchissippi Ward resident. And I guess they haven't heard back from staff with respect to some of their preliminary questions. I don't want to step on Ariel's toes, and I am following her lead with respect to the development of the 1010 Somerset 930, the school. It's a complex piece of Jenga, but I know there is a solution that is forward. But I did put a question to staff this morning, and I'll pose it here. With respect to the assertion that staff have delegated authority to sell any of Plouffe Park without council approval. Is that the case? What would be the disposal policy surrounding anything at Plouffe?
Mr. Mayor, that is not the case. The city has the retention of municipal parkland policy that requires any parkland property, city parkland property that is zoned for recreational use to come before committee and council before we can dispose of. So it trumps the delegated authority bylaw. So any parkland would come before this committee and then would go before council.
Now, 1010 Somerset is adjacent. And it is land that we are eyeing for the development of a school, an expanded cultural and recreation hub, et cetera. What would be staff's intention with respect to 1010 Somerset Plouffe Park concept if it did involve the disposal of any lands? Would that come before council?
That would come before council. Right now, that area, the 1010 Somerset lands are zoned mixed use. If we were to dispose of those lands, that would come before committee and council because it would exceed delegated authority. Okay. But there aren't any plans to do a massive disposal of those lands. It's part of what Councillor Troster was just speaking of. There's a master plan that's being discussed with community consultation.
I think the rumors that are flying in the community are that the city will dispose of land to the school so that the SAPO can build a school without that being a decision that is subject to a council vote. If you are proposing to do, for example, air rights in which you dispose of property rights above grade in order to build a school, would that decision come to council?
If the land is zoned for a park use it's coming before council. If the land is owned for some other use and it's under $2 million, it's done in a delegated authority, chances are such air rights would be well above that, and that would come before committee and council, Mr. Mayor.
So I guess what I would ask is, are you prepared to make a commitment today that however staff want to proceed with building parkland, an expanded recreation and cultural center, and a school in that geography, that decision will come to council for a decision?
Any lands, again, we would be coming before committee and council on any lands associated with the park. The policy requires that.
Okay. So for the community, I would just say there is still, to Councillor Troster's point, a significant consultation that is occurring, and that the city is not preparing a backroom deal to sell parkland to the school without that coming in a transparent way to city council. And the decision will be ours to make around this table and the planning committee table and the council table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. So is the report received? Thank you. There are no in-camera items. I'll note the information that was previously distributed on the economic development update. We have one notice of motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting from Councillor Luloff. Councillor Luloff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is quite a lengthy notice of motion. It has been distributed to my colleagues, so I'll save you reading it into the record as it'll be possibly discussed at the next meeting. It's a pretty, it's a land swap that would allow for the secondary plan public realm study, public realm elements to be included on this at this important placemaking spot, and would also help us to realize some affordable housing goals as well. So I'll leave it with the committee to take a peek at over the course of the next month. And should staff and the proponent come to an agreement in the meantime, I'll remove this from the order paper. Thank you very much.
Okay. Are there any inquiries? Any other business? Motion to adjourn then till our next meeting on November 7th. Is that carried? Thank you, everyone. Merci beaucoup.